Every Thursday morning at this time, we bring you Olsen on Law with attorney Tom Olsen. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Melissa and team and WFLA listeners.
So today we've decided to take on a couple of topics. Most importantly, the Supreme Court ruling about the Trump administration ending the 2020 census early. Can you explain to me how this all happened?
Well, Melissa, I want to talk about 3 Supreme Court cases that all affect the 2020 census. And first, let's go back what was, and that is, remember, the Trump administration had tried to add a citizenship question to the census this year. In June of 2020, the Supreme Court blocked that question from being on the census. Then number 2, we just remind the listeners that normally, pre-COVID, the census had to end by the last day of September. The results had to be presented to Congress by the last day of December. The Census Bureau and the federal court had ruled that the census would continue through October and the results did not need to be presented to Congress until April. That case was appealed and it ended up before the Supreme Court. And this past Tuesday, October 13, 2020, the Supreme Court ruled that the census would end on September 30th and the results must be presented to Congress by December 31st. That's a big win for the Trump administration because these results will be used to apportion the seats in Congress and how federal money is divided between the states. And Melissa, with that, it leaves us with one more case that is pending before the Supreme Court.
Okay, and which one would this be?
Okay, so this is it. The Trump administration wants the results of the census to include how many of these counted are non-citizens. The Trump administration wants to not count those as part of the apportionment. That case is still to be held before the Supreme Court. Of course, that could really affect how the apportionment happens if they're not counting non-citizens in this 2020 census. That's a huge case, still to be determined by the United States Supreme Court in the coming weeks.
Wow, that is pretty important stuff there. You know, I just got a notice on Facebook telling me that the census ends this week, and I make sure I'm in there. Of course, I put mine back in the mail months ago when it first came out. So hopefully everything goes all right with that. Now, let's move on to the Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. She's doing quite well in the hearings the last few days, and today is the final day. I think they have 20-minute segments now that they're going to bombard her with. Can you give us just a little bit of information for those that have been under a rock and are not familiar with the ACB?
Well, let's just say that she has put on a solid testimony this week. I have a lot of respect for her, as well as all her legal peers out there. I just say this, come on. She's raised 7 children. She has risen to the top of her game as a woman and raising a family. And boy, I just have a lot of respect for her. I don't care what the Democrats ask her. She's a solid performer, and I fully expect her to be nominated to the Supreme Court, and I have a lot of faith that she will do the Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, I was wondering, some of the questioning, again, it's so redundant. They just keep pounding the same things over and over again. Honestly, Tom, in your mind, how do you think they can just keep pushing this race question at her when she has 2 biracial adopted children?
I agree. It's just not productive, and they're trying to make a point about it, and it's just not going to get anywhere. But let's remember that there are some major issues that the Supreme Court has ruled on in the past, including gay marriage, and those cases may come before the court again. Abortion. So these are important issues that may come before the court again. And I guess it's right the Democrats would like to know how she might be ruling on that. But she's handling it like a professional. She can't tell them what her mindset is on those things. She's simply saying, hey, I'm going to follow the law, whatever it happens to be, and I believe her on that point.
Fantastic. You know, we do this every Thursday at this time. Attorney Tom Olsen is going to be back with us on Good Morning Orlando at this time next Thursday morning. And as always, you'll be answering listeners' legal questions this Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. on Olsen on Law right here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Just want to say thanks, Tom. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Melissa.
And remember, for all of your legal needs, you can just call the Olsen Law Group in Orlando.